Hello, members. Tom Morrison here from Nashville, Tennessee, the corporate office of MTI. As you can tell, remote work is a big deal today, and we're working remotely. So you got this nice big mirror behind me. But we're excited to be here today. We're talking about branding, marketing, and growing your business and attracting customers and winning clients with Jay Owen today. Before we get into that, just a couple big quick things. So on the bottom, you can see there's a chat, word chat. Click on it, and a chat box pops up. And there's anything in this conversation you want to ask Jay or myself about the conversation, or if you had a comment on another member's comment, please click in the chat box and type your message in, and we'd love to hear and engage you with anything that you'd like to do. First thing I always do is, you can see I've typed in, where are you listening from? We would love, and Jay I'm sure would like to see, where are y'all listening from? So please chime in and tune in and type in where you're listening from. Now the next big thing is I always like to give a couple of things that's going on with MTI, because we have great stuff happening at the Metal Treating Institute on your behalf. So one of the big things that we've got now, which kind of feeds into today's topic, is our new benefit of plant tour videos that you can have done. So we partner with a new group called Association Studios. We've actually worked with them since 2009 as the Metal Treating Institute. They've done a lot of our highlight videos and stuff. If you go out to heattreat.net, our website, and you click on the top industry support team, you would see that Jay's name's in that. Sorry, I had to reach down and get my power cord plugged in. You would see Jay's name's on there, but the very first one is Association Studios, that you can type on and you can watch a video of them. You can click and get a hold of Jim Waxman and see the benefit of what it takes to put a 4 to 5 minute video for your company together. Because here's the challenge. At our board meeting last year, members were talking about how it's become very difficult to sell in this digital age. And one of the things you can do is use a digital plant tour in order to show your customers, what are your capabilities, what are your expertise. So a great thing to tap into. Just go to heattreat.net, click on industry support team at the top, and you'll see Association Studios there, and you can see a link to a recent webcast that we did with him and one of our members on the importance of this stuff. So the second thing is, I know the NIST standards with the CMMC going, if you do business with the Department of Defense, you're going to need to have this stuff done in the very near future. And we just hosted a meeting in the Midwest chapter with Nick Espinosa. He is such an expert on this stuff. If you're doing business with the Department of Defense, or a supplier to someone doing business with the Department of Defense, and you're having challenge with this, all you got to do is go out and you log in to your heattreat.net, log into your account, and at the top under Get Connected, you'll see it says Ask the Cybersecurity Pro. You click that, and up pops a form that you can type in anything you need to send to Nick. Nick will get that as soon as you hit submit, and he'll be responding to you as quickly as possible. That's a very good resource you can have for the CMMC and the NIST standard that you will vastly need. And then MTI Live meetings are back. We have had a number of virtual meetings in the past year with COVID, and we just had our Midwest chapter meeting this past week in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And guess what? There was an absolutely incredible vibe at that meeting. People have gotten tired of doing this, and they want to shake hands personally. And I know Jay's probably can communicate some of that as well. But we have our next meeting in 3 weeks from now in Amelia Island, Florida. We're going to have over 130 MTI members there talking about time management, KPIs, key performance indicators. And we're going to have Rob O'Neill is our featured keynote, the last person to speak. And he was a part of the team that brought back Captain Phillips out of the Somalia piracy thing I think you saw. And he's on SEAL Team 6. And he's got a great story on how when you build a plan, how to never give up on your plan. So an incredible meeting. I know some on this call are probably going to be there. We look forward to seeing you and shaking your hand. But now let's get on to probably the number one thing that's going through every single member's mind right now in this day and age. With COVID getting behind us, what I've read many times, Jay, is sales regeneration. Top line sales regeneration is one of the number one things, because you can only cut expenses so far, but then you have to begin to raise sales again. And part of that is telling your story, marketing. So before we get into that, Jay, how about sharing with them your story a little bit, who Jay Owen is, what your team does, and how we're connected?
Yeah, I always say marketing can be confusing and expensive. A lot of people waste a lot of time and money on marketing that doesn't work, and that can be really frustrating. And it's great to be on with you, Tom, because you and I go way back. If you're not my first client, you were very early on. You had to probably be one of the very first ones. Tom and I worked together, gosh, I don't even know how long ago. I think I was working out of my mom's garage. I was a teenager at that point. Yeah, it was a long time ago. That was before technically Design Extensions, which is the agency I run now, even existed. I was just kind of doing work on the side as a kid, really. And So it's so cool to still be working together literally decades later to help other people grow their organizations. So that's what we do is we help other people grow their businesses or organizations, and we do that by helping them get attention and acquire customers. It looks a little bit different for everybody depending on what kind of industry or business that they're in, but we've found over time that there are certain principles and certain fundamentals that are really true for everybody. And so that's where we start, is with a good plan up front. We always say you got to plan things first, you got to produce them, and you got to promote them. And if you have those 3 Ps in marketing, you're usually going to see verifiable, measurable success.
Well, you know, what's exciting for me, Jay, is I can remember you were still, to put it in perspective, you were still in high school. I think it was your senior year when I came along and said, hey, our association, not MTI, the first one I had ever been a part of, but we need to build our website. Would you be interested? And I remember you said, man, I'd love to do it all day long. And it's been exciting for me to see the 25-year run that you've had. That's been amazing. You've actually lived your story brand model and grew your agency through what you're going to be talking about today, which I think is very cool. I think you maybe might want to mention some of the, you know, you're always very open with how many years you've been in business, what you've grown over those years. And so maybe, so share a little bit to give people perspective, a bit of the clarity of why would we choose you. You've done it very successfully. Talk about what the growth of your business using these concepts have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, ultimately, I don't think it's about me, but at the same time, I have to have some kind of authority if people want to listen to me, I suppose.
Right.
And so, you know, I've been doing websites and marketing, as Tom said, for over 25 years. The agency that I run now, June will be 22 years in business, and we've grown every single year, including through the 2008 collapse and then through the last year's pandemic. We've grown every single year, and that's not by mistake. You know, it's because I have a great team, partially, but it's also because we have the right systems in place to make sure that we're able to stay in front of people and continue to get attention through all kinds of different climates. So we have, you know, back in the day, I just built basic websites. You know, back when Tom and I first started working together, I personally built basic websites. And you know, a lot of you are probably familiar with some of the ideas in a book called E-Myth by Michael Gerber. He says people tend to start out with as a technician, maybe they go to a manager, maybe they have an entrepreneur mindset, but those 3 things are required, right? Technician, a manager, an entrepreneur. And I started as a technician, started building websites, did some graphic design, and I'm still better than a lot of people at those things, but that's not what I'm most gifted at. And I found over time my greatest gift in this is entrepreneurship and ultimately helping people tell good stories and the strategy behind the business. So that's my primary role as CEO of Design Extensions, is helping with the strategy side for companies, but really also supporting our team. And then our team's job is to help make sure that all those deliverables are created in a way that help people actually grow.
Awesome, man. Well, you know, you mentioned one key word, which is so prevalent today, which is noise. I mean, with live meetings going by the wayside and everybody out there pummeling email with webinar this, watch this, webcast that, like we're doing today, I mean, a lot of people are overload on noise. Yeah. And so as you look at the combination of print, social media, email, e-news, whatever it is you want to call it, how do people get noticed in all of that noise?
So one of the big things about getting noticed in the midst of noise is making it about the primary problem that your customer is solving and not about you. You know, it's so easy, especially I know many of you here today have been in business for a long time. Many of you have been in business a lot longer than I have. I know some heat treaters out there that have been in business for, 100 years. And so there's a lot of pride in that. And there's a lot of pride in that history and that story and who we are as a company. And those things are valuable. But what a lot of people do is they start with that. And it's the equivalent of walking around a networking meeting and saying, hey, let me tell you about myself. And just starting to talk about yourself. And people just don't care that much. Like, that sounds really harsh, but if you approach them instead, if regardless of what the medium is, traditional stuff like billboards and magazines and newspapers and TV and radio, or digital ads and social media and websites and email and all those kinds of things, regardless of the medium that we're trying to attract people through, if we start with what the problem is, we're able to gain their attention earlier on. So for example, Tom, when you asked me to tell people about myself, the first thing I did not say was, my name's Jay Owen, I'm the CEO of Design Extensions. I started this business when I was 17 years old and I was working out of my mom's garage. I didn't start there. I started with, well, marketing can be confusing and expensive. And we believe it needs to be clear and effective so you can get attention and acquire customers. As soon as I say something like marketing can be confusing and expensive, most business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs go, oh, yes, it can. I've done a lot of things that
they
don't
leaned
work.
in and said, yeah, I want to know more, Jay.
Right, exactly. And so as it relates to any of the businesses that are on or organizations that are watching today, that's the question is, what is the problem that you're solving for your customer? The person who's actually making the purchase decision or looking for you online or in any other venue, like what is the problem that you solve for them? And if you start there, now you have my attention because you're going to help fix something for me.
Right.
Which, we're all a little bit selfish, unfortunately. And so once I know that you're interested in helping and you know about one of my problems, I'm like, oh, well, tell me more about that. And that's where I want you to be. I want you to be in a place of curiosity, not in a place of confusion.
Well, so I know you've read Donna Miller's book, How to Build a Story Brand, and I just finished reading, and I'd recommend, I think Jay would say, anybody that's listening in should read that book or listen to it. I listened to it, and he said one thing in the entire book that stuck with me is that in all of our marketing and all the messaging, we're so busy telling the customer about us, that about what we do, that we're forgetting to ask him, so what is your problem? And saying things that resonate the internal emotions that says, I want to know more. So unpack a little bit. Before we get into that, let's do this first. So when you look at people, you've been doing hundreds of people's marketing strategies. What are some of the key mistakes that you have seen that most people run to, that you see the most that they make in trying to determining their marketing strategy?
Yeah, I'll give you 3 specific ones related to a website. Most of you could pull up your own website right now, look at these things, and know if you need to change them or not. Number 1, if your homepage says something like, welcome to X, Y, or Z. We've been in business since X, Y, or Z. We've done this. That copy is focused on you and it needs to be focused on your customer. Let me give you an example. If I say on my homepage, we've been in business since 1999, true statement, but what if instead I said, you deserve an agency with decades of experience? That's way better because it's about what you want instead of what I want. And so look at your website and look for we statements. Those we statements, especially on the homepage, should become you statements. Another key thing that's an easy thing to mess up, and a lot of us did this for a long time. If you go on your homepage and in the top section, kind of before you scroll, you have links to your Facebook page or your LinkedIn page or whatever else. It sounds like a good idea. It's actually not, and here's why. When somebody clicks on your Facebook link and it takes them to your Facebook page, what's the one thing that Facebook wants you to do? Stay on Facebook as long as possible. And so they're going to distract you with notifications and messages and things to keep you on Facebook. Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or any of the other social platforms should be one-way traffic. They should drive traffic from that social platform to your website, not the other way around. They don't need you to send them any more traffic. Do not have that in the top of your website. Maybe it can be at the bottom somewhere, that's fine, but not in the top. And then lastly, on the website from a messaging perspective, as far as big mistakes people make, is they get too technical. And this can happen because y'all have a very technical field. It doesn't need to be technical. The 3 questions that I need to be able to answer immediately when I look at any of your marketing, especially your homepage, is what do you offer, how's it going to make my life better, and how do I buy it? My video looks like it just shut off. Let me see what happened there. So those are the 3 things I'd be focused on for now.
So as companies are thinking through what their messaging should be, and to get from the we statements to the you statements, what should they be thinking through in terms of a process? And I know my next question was going to be about the concept of story brand framework. I know there's a lot to unpack there, but so what is that, and how do they use that to come up with the messaging that really hits home with a member, with the customer?
Yeah. Great question. The book that you mentioned earlier, I put it in the chat there for people to have reference to. It's called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Now, some people may be familiar with Donald Miller and think, well, like Blue Like Jazz Donald Miller, that's a book he was famous for in the past. It is actually the same guy, but now he's built a mega multi-million-dollar business on helping people use story to tell their business. I mean, to tell their story. But here's the big pivot. The thing people think they need to do is tell their story. People used to come to me all the time and say, hey, Jay, we need your help to tell our story. And I'd say, great. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And they would. And then we would write their story better than they could write their story. And that was fine. But what you actually need when you come to me and say, hey, Jay, I need your help to tell our story, what I'm going to tell you now is, no, you don't. You need my help to invite your customer into a story. And so that's the paradigm shift of what happens in building a story brand. Instead of making the story about us, it makes us about the customer. So we walk through 7 steps. I won't unpack them all today because I could do a whole webinar on that. But just real quickly, it's what does your customer want? What problem do they have? How do you have authority, empathy and authority to help them solve that? Do you give them a clear plan to win the day? Do you call them to action? Do you show them what failure looks like? And do you show them what success looks like? Like I said, that's a whole nother webinar. I actually teach a whole class on that. If anybody's interested in that, I can give you that info later. But those 7 steps, walking your customer through that journey, is going to help them pay attention. It's going to make it focused on them. And ultimately, what you really care about is it's going to make them more likely to buy from you. And we all have competition in the market. I believe more in collaboration than I do competition most of the time anyway. But look, if somebody's interested in what we do, I want them to buy from me, especially if they're a good fit and they align with our core values and they're the kind of people we want to work with. And so how do I do that? I don't do that by exclusively talking about myself. I do get to talk about myself eventually, just not at the beginning of the story. So that's kind of what StoryBrand is about in a real nutshell.
So in that StoryBrand framework, I mean, when people leave this, they go back and they sit with their team. Some have actual marketing teams, some have just their management. Some of them you just have the owner and one other person. So what's kind of a first step that you would encourage them to take when they walk away and sit down and start talking about, okay, let's look at our website, let's look at our print material, let's look at our sales messaging, because the sales messaging obviously has to match up with your marketing messaging. So what are some of the first couple of things you would encourage them to sit down and start thinking through?
So the first thing we start with for every single client is that story brand piece of the puzzle. I'm not sure why my video keeps going out. I got a camera issue, obviously, but I'll just kind of talk through it. Can you still hear me okay, Tom?
I can. You're perfect.
Great. So what happens is we get too far down the funnel, and we start to worry about, what we're going to do on social media and how often we're going to post and whether or not we're going to create ads or not and how many dollars we're going to spend on those ads and what platforms we're going to drive people to. And at the end of the day, if we don't have our story right up front, we're wasting a lot of time and money on things that don't work. So really that book, Building a Story Brand, is where I would start. And you can kind of skim it. You don't even have to really, it's a quick, easy read. I mean, Tom, you said you just read it. It's a really easy read. Mm-hmm. And start there. Start with walking through, figuring out what those 7 steps are that our customer walks through from a customer experience. And if you get that right, all of the rest of your marketing is going to become much better because it's all focused on this customer journey from the very beginning. The biggest mistake people make is not getting that right first. They don't have a good plan, and it's like going to build a house without a blueprint. So you got to have a blueprint up front to get those things right.
So customer acquisition, I mean, you've been doing this obviously for 25 years in a marketing way for the last decade at least. So what are you noticing differently in the customer acquisition process over the last number of years? I mean, obviously this past year really shook things up because it usually was a bunch of handshakes, trade shows, lots of relationships, and now it's gone almost 100%. Now we're starting to see shows come back a little bit, but it's really been a digital marketplace, and that's really tough. And I can tell you the people that's listening on here, it's one of the biggest struggles that many of our members have because there's such a physical touch the equipment kind of thing. How's that customer acquisition change from a real world, the physical world, to a digital world?
Well, I think, Tom, the example that you gave at the beginning of like having a video tour that's really high end, for example, like from the association group that does that, I think those are the kind of things that businesses have not had in place, but they need to. Because here's kind of my prediction on business as it relates to digital versus in person. Some people think things are just going to stay digital and that we're not going to get back to where we were. I don't think that's true at all. I think a lot of people have realized that there's some more efficiencies they can create with things like this because, I mean, we've got, almost 50 people working, in and out of this webinar, that if we were to try and get all of those people at a live event today, it'd be much more difficult, impossible even. But they can still take away a lot of data now that they might not have done before. And so I think we're going to move towards this hybrid environment of, Some things we go, you know what, that's actually going to work perfectly fine digitally. And then some things need to be in person. And I think, ultimately it's about having those assets in place of, do I have a good video tour of our business? Does our website actually communicate who we are? Because I know a lot of people have survived for years and years and years without even having a great website. They're like, well, our
Right.
clients don't go to the internet. So they're going to come to our plant. They're going to schedule an appointment. They're going to get a referral to us, as people say. And I'm like, well, great. But the next thing that person's going to do, especially now, is go look you up on the internet. And when they
Right.
pull up your website, when they pull up your homepage, does it represent you in word and in image? Because I always say design builds trust, but words are what sell. You may have the most spectacular plant out there. When I walk in, I might think, man, this place is amazing. But when I go to your website and it looks like it was built in 1995, like I was when I was, 15 years old, it's not going to go very well. And you're tarnishing your reputation. Everything you do from a marketing perspective, regardless of how somebody came to you, even if they're a referral, is either pushing people towards buying from you or pushing them away. There is no neutral. And today, in today's environment especially, having a great website, having a great video, and having the right story and message around that are critical because people are going to look at those things and they're going to have a deciding factor, even if it's a small percent, and don't you want that to be something that pushes them towards you?
So talk about connecting marketing to your sales. I know you got some great business development people. So talk about a little bit about translating that messaging and strategy and marketing to your salespeople.
So I think that marketing and sales are not as far apart as they used to be. It used to be kind of this marketing would blame things on the sales department and the sales department would blame things on the marketing department. I see those things as two cogs in a wheel that are both helping the other go around. And I think without the other, there's a problem. Here's the way I visualize it. I think this is a helpful example. Marketing to me is like the wide cast net. It's the net I'm tossing out there to bring a lot of fish in. And the sales is the narrow target. I know what fish I need to go after now, and I'm gonna deal with them individually. That's kind of the difference between those two, and having the right tools in place really helps with that. So one of the tools that we use is a tool called HubSpot, HubSpot.com. They have a great free tool that replaces a lot of things like live chat and email and other stuff, and then they have some really high-end professional and enterprise class tools that we use for automation and marketing. And what happens is it helps the sales team by having signals from marketing. So for example, if you signed up for one of my emails or came to one of my events or anything like that, we'll send you emails over time. And that platform will track that you opened it or didn't open it, that you clicked on it or didn't click on it. It'll also track any other engagement you have. If you came back to our website or if you called us, our sales team's going to make notes in the same place that our marketing team does. So I don't see sales and marketing as separate things. I see them as a unified front to cast a wide net to get the attention and then draw them in and take action in order to close the deal. It's all part of the same funnel to me.
Yeah, because what you don't want to be in is a place where sales is going, you need to cast a bigger net, guys. And marketing's going, you need to pick the fish faster, right? So they're at each other's hands back and forth.
Right, exactly.
So I can always remember, Jay, going back to your describing what a website looks like back to St. Thomas when you spoke at our conference, and you had two pictures of two different employees. One was kind of a shabby looking dress person, and another one was a very professionally, person. And you're like, who would hire the person on the left? And no one raised their hands. And you said, who would hire the guy on the right? And you're like, obviously most everybody raised their hand. And what you alluded to was, well, the guy on the left is many of your websites, the shaggy looking person. So I think it's important that we really take notice that the first place almost everybody is going to go, especially now, is type your name in Google and see what pops up. And it's imperative that when they look at it, that it's got to be just absolutely awesome and says, come do business with us.
Yeah, Tom, that's actually a really good point about typing your name into Google, because the other thing is, and I'm going to put a link here in the chat for people. I'm just going to check real quick to make sure I'm giving the right link. What's happening on Google right now a lot of times is Google is delivering information before you even go to a website, right? So a lot of times if you type your company name in, you'll see some photos there. You'll see if you've got reviews or not. You might see your address, your phone number, your web address. All those things are really important, and many people don't have that updated. That's actually a really easy thing to do, and it's free. So just go to this link I put in chat, google.com/business. and you can claim your profile, and then you can upload your own videos, your own photos, your logo, update your hours, update your web address, update your mailing address, your phone number, all that stuff. And to me, that's like the very first thing I want somebody to do. So we'll help clients with that if we're doing a marketing engagement. But honestly, for many of you, especially if you're pretty tech savvy, you can just go to that address I just put in chat and fill out your own profile, and that alone can help with your reputation. Same thing while we're talking about reputation. If you've only got 2 or 3 reviews out there on Google, that's a problem. And here's why. If some random person comes on there, or a disgruntled client, I mean, I know none of y'all have disgruntled clients ever, you know, but just humor me and assume that maybe occasionally you might have one. If they go out there and give you a 1-star review and you've only got 2 people on there that gave you a 5-star review, what happens to your score? It goes down pretty far.
Right.
But if you've got 20 people even, you don't have to be 2,000, but 20 people who gave you a 4 or 5-star review, and one person comes on there and gives you a 1-star review, it's not as big of a problem. So
Right.
protecting your reputation online can extend to those areas as well. And frankly, it's pretty easy to put a few things in place to get a couple more reviews, get a couple people to give you some feedback, hopefully that's positive, and that can protect you online along with obviously the image of your website.
So dig a little deeper in that, Jay. So we've touched the surface on it. So we live now in I don't think many people, especially in manufacturing, because social media and the internet of promotion is not necessarily something they've done a lot of, but it's getting there now in the last year. But we live, and I tell everybody, we live in a rate, review, and recommend society, period. And so connect the dot of how important it is to make sure that whatever medium you have out there past your website, that it's important to be active, engaging, and keep it up and monitoring it for what you just said. If you have 2 reviews and someone pops a 1-star, and at the end of that, just what do you do about the 1-star? Is it editable, or can you connect with it? So kind of unpack that whole rate, review, recommend concept, why it's important.
Yeah, great point, Tom. You know, one of the things, if you get a really bad review, the best thing to do is get more good reviews. It's very difficult on Google or Facebook to ever have a review removed. There are a few instances where they'll do it, but it's pretty rare. So the best way to do it is, number 1, protect yourself ahead of time and get a bunch of positive reviews. As it relates to social platforms in general, I think that you should protect your brand across every major social platform. That does not mean you have to be posting on it daily. But if I go to your Facebook page and the last post is from March of 2015, it doesn't look very good. It just looks like you're kind of stagnant as a company. It makes me think, are they even still in business? And you never want to create those type of impressions. So I would say that for many of the businesses that are on here, you don't need to be super active on Facebook. But your Facebook page needs to match your brand. It needs to be updated. And you probably need to put something out there at least once a month. One of the things, as we hopefully continue to grow as an economy out of all the craziness from last year, is some people are struggling to find people to work in some instances. I know here in Florida,
Right.
especially in the restaurant space, people are really struggling to find team members. One of the often neglected spaces for something like Facebook is showing off your culture and showing off how great it is to work at your company, and using that to get more people to come work for you. So a lot of times that's a missed value of social media. The other thing I would say real quick about LinkedIn, I thought that platform was going to die for years. It didn't. Microsoft bought it out and has really revitalized it. People get so caught up on trying to create their own content. And one of the best tips I could give you today to improve your own connections on something like LinkedIn, where your customers and competition are, is go connect with people that you want to connect with, see what they're posting, and write something nice on it. Because we all like when people tell us nice things.
Right, exactly.
So go comment on their post. You don't even have to create your own content. Just go to their post and say, they post something about their business or whatever. Wow, that's amazing. So excited. What have you guys learned from that? I don't know. Be the best commenter on their comments. And what they're going to do is go, I wonder who that is. And they click on your profile, and they go to your LinkedIn profile, then they click on your website and go to your website. And that's the workflow of how that happens. That can be significantly more valuable than you just putting stuff out into the world that nobody's clicking on or cares about anyway. Go engage with other people, build relationships. It's just like in person. If you show up at a networking event and walk around and go, buy from me, buy from me, buy from me, nobody wants to talk to that person.
Right.
But if you go up and say, hey, tell me about yourself. I heard that you guys are doing X, Y, or Z. That sounds really cool. Tell me more about that. Well, now all of a sudden, they're like, well, I'd love to tell you about that. And now you're building a relationship, you're building rapport. Don't treat social media any different than you do a networking event. Don't just be out there with a megaphone. Be out there asking questions. Be out there engaging people. Connect with other people's content. Do all of that, and it's a lot easier than trying to produce a ton of content. And I think most of the businesses on here don't need to be producing a ton of content on social. They just need to have really good representation. Maybe you post once a month at a minimum so that there's something that's current out there. But other than that, those are some of the big ideas I would think through on that.
You know, that probably resonates with a lot of people here because I know what it's like to post something because I write a fair amount of blog stuff for LinkedIn. And what's the first thing you do when you go into LinkedIn, just like Facebook, you click notifications. And when you see 3 people commented on your blog, the first thing you do is you click it and go see what they say and who are they. And then if there's somebody interesting, you click on them. So I know that. And what does that do to the person? It makes them feel, especially if it's a positive comment, it makes you feel really good that they did that. So you're right. It does raise those emotions more so than just pushing content out and forgetting about it.
Absolutely.
So talk a little bit about the whole website thing in terms of, I know you talked about the 3 things a website has to communicate. So is there kind of a checklist of things that you would say when you go back and you're looking at your website and you're looking at those 3 messaging points, is there some specific checklist items that you want that people should be going down and saying, we got to make sure that our website does this or has this?
Yeah, there's a whole, that's a whole nother webinar to some extent to give you all of them, but I'll give you a few big ideas that will be helpful for everybody that you can go look at your own website. So if you're watching, pull your own website up in a little window and let's look at these things real quick together and I'm going to talk through them. So number 1 is, do you have a single clear call to action? Most people do one of 2 things. They have way too many things for people to click on, or they have nothing for people to click on. They have some ambiguous phrase that says like, the future starts here, or something like that.
We're awesome.
Nobody knows what that means. Yeah, exactly. and you need to have a single clear call to action, not learn more, something like book a call, schedule a consultation, set up a demo, set up a tour, whatever it is, a single thing that you want them to do as their first step in their customer journey. The second thing is you need to answer those 3 questions I mentioned earlier. When I look at your website, not somebody in your industry, but anybody should be able to look at your homepage and answer these questions. What do you offer? How's it going to make my life better as your customer? And how do I buy it? Or how do I move to the next step, at least, in requesting a quote or buying it? If I can't answer those 3 questions, that's where you need to start. And ultimately, the other thing I think it really matters too, everybody doesn't do this. I don't always get my way on even sites that we've built, but smiling, happy people go a long way. A lot of people, especially in manufacturing, not even just manufacturing, but like in all of your spaces, in heat treating, manufacturing, all those spaces, they tend to want to show off cool machines and stuff, which I like doing too, but I also want to, whenever possible, mix in photos or videos of people. Because we want to create this aspiration that somebody looks at and goes, I want to be like these people. And that sounds silly when we're talking about a business to business or a business to industry type environment, but it's true. People want to work with people that they like, that they know, like, and trust, and having great images on there can help with that. Also, on your homepage, want to ask the question, what's at stake? I always say that people have 3 options: do nothing, buy from somebody else, or buy from you. If they do nothing or they buy from somebody else, what could happen? I'm not saying overly focus on the negative, but we have to disturb people enough that they're going to move towards buying from us. Now, those of you that are not salespeople are like, man, Jay, that sounds kind of slimy. I don't like that. I don't like the idea of disturbing somebody. I understand. But if you really believe that your product or your services are going to help someone, then I believe that we're morally obligated to convince them to buy it. And so by disturbing their concerns, hey, if I do nothing or I buy from somebody who's a lower quality or doesn't do as good a job as we do, what's at stake? That's ultimately why people buy. People buy, number 1, to avoid failure and fear first before they're concerned about success. So if your messaging is not mentioning any of that, you've got a problem. The other thing is, have a professional design your website. Now, I know I'm biased because we design websites for people, but seriously, Don't just go out there if you are, a multi-million-dollar business and be building your website on a free platform. Why would you do that? Like you have a multi-million-dollar factory in some places, and you've got a website that's worth $100 on, some cheap platform. Don't do that. Have it professionally designed. The appearance does matter. Doesn't matter as much as I used to think it mattered, because I think it's a combination, like I said earlier, of design builds trust, and words are what sell. You need great design and great words. Put those things together, you're going to get more people to buy from you.
You said a couple key things. So one of the greatest salespeople I've ever met, who is that we both know, told me many years ago that people don't buy for one of two reasons. Reason number one is they're not aware the problem even exists. So it's in your best interest to share with them what the problem that they have exists, which is what you're talking about, making them the hero. And the second reason is they're aware of the problem, but they're not sufficiently disturbed enough about it to make the choice to do change. And just to say, I think what you're saying is do you have enough information on the website that disturbs someone enough to say, we've got to check this out because we're going to miss out if we don't do this, or at least click the book a 15-minute appointment, at least listen. So I think that's some pretty key things for people to think about. It's not about, like you say, selling the negative and disturbing them emotionally. It's just about telling them what you're going to miss out on about being successful if you don't do these steps.
Absolutely. It's huge.
So is there anything going through your mind? We've unpacked a fair amount of stuff. Is there anything going through your mind, looking at websites, just the digital marketing strategy, where they should start? Is there anything that is going through your mind that you think, man, before I leave here, this is something that they have to get a grasp of?
I think we've hit on so many different things. I mean, we've covered about 3 different webinars in one webinar here, so that's good because everybody's getting a lot of value, hopefully. But I think that the biggest thing is I want to just hammer home the idea that it's not about you, it's about your customer. And at some point, your experience and knowledge and all that does matter. But at the beginning, it's about the customer. So let's make it about the customer instead of making it about us. And if we do that, our marketing will be much more successful.
Awesome. So I want to just kind of unpack one final concept that we haven't really talked about, and that's marketing automation. I know that could be, some people are probably doing that well. I'm sure many of our members aren't doing it at all because they may not know what that is, but that's kind of a new wave of creating a salesperson using electronic format. Could you kind of unpack what automated marketing automation is and a little kind of heads up of how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize for my camera issues to everybody who's watching, but hopefully you can still hear me fine. I don't know what's going on. We got a new video studio, and as much as I'm a technology guy, things happen. So here we are. What I would say about marketing automation is, you never want to be doing things as a person that a robot can do for you. And some people are scared of this stuff, right? We don't want robots to take over the world. They're probably going to. But at the same time, we might as well take advantage of them before they do take over the world. And with marketing automation, the idea is simply this. When I look at a task or series of tasks, like sending out a follow-up email, for example, I first ask the question of, does this need to be done? And if the answer is yes, I next ask the question, can it be automated? And by automated, I simply mean having a system in place that does it for me so I don't have to think about it. I'll give you a couple specific examples. Every quarter, we send out an email to our customer list that simply asks, how likely are you to recommend design extensions to somebody else, 0 through 10? Kind of a standard NPS survey, which some of you are probably familiar with. And what happens is most people give us 9s and 10s, which is great. And occasionally, somebody gives us a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5. And what happens is if they give us a detractor score, a couple hours later, to make it look like it's real, even though it's automated, they automatically get an email from me that says, hey, I saw that you kind of scored us low. Well, I always want to know what's going on to make sure that I can help out. Here's a link. I'd love to talk to you. Here's a link to my calendar so we can set up a time to chat. And most people take advantage of that. Now, that's automation, right? Because our system, HubSpot, handles that survey feedback for us. Now, on the marketing side, an example of that would be somebody comes to our website and they don't schedule a call. They're not ready to buy from us yet. And instead, what they do is they download a PDF or some kind of white paper or ebook that we provide that's valuable to them. The mistake most people make is they just give them that PDF and they never follow up with them. Salespeople primarily lose deals for one of two reasons. They don't ask for the sale, that's not having a clear call to action, or they don't follow up enough. And I want to make sure that we're following up. So when they get that PDF from us, what will then happen is HubSpot, our marketing automation tool, will look at that and go, okay, this person requested a PDF, I'm going to go ahead and send that to them. And then the next day, I'm going to send them another email that says, hey, I saw that you downloaded our PDF yesterday. Really appreciate that. I wanted to make sure you paid attention to problem number 3 on that list. A lot of people struggle with that. And then it sends out a series of 5 emails, actually, after they download that email. Instead of a salesperson having to do that basic nurturing, it does it for them automatically. So I'm taking kind of the dumb monkey robot work off of a person, letting the computer do that, and letting the salesperson engage once I see the right triggers in place. They're opening emails, they're clicking on them, maybe they're coming back and actually scheduling a call. That's when I want to get that salesperson engaged.
I think that's awesome, because I mean that really helps. That helps people scale. And MTI is all about a couple of years ago, we really started talking about Industry 4.0 automation, how you can scale your business, and automate it, not to get rid of employees, but to scale it for capacity expansion. So if you can take a little bit of technology and turn the productivity from one person in the 1.5 or 1.75 people or double that productivity without adding more human labor, because like you said earlier, it's so tough to find. We're about to go back to less than 5% unemployment again, and it's going to be so tough to find good people. So I think it's imperative that every member is looking to make their company a smart company in every aspect, including marketing. So
Absolutely.
Jay, so we've hit on a ton. I hope members, you've gotten a ton out of this. He's hit some very key points. So Jay is one of our industry support team partners. If you go out to heattreat.net and click on the industry support team at the top, his company is Design Extensions, and you just feed down to that. You'll be able to connect with him and follow up with him. I know he's recently launched this past year a couple of websites for our members that were awesome. So they do great work, and we'd highly recommend them. So Jay, in closing, what would you like to send the members off to with regarding to I know you talk about what next steps are. What would be some encouraging words about marketing?
Yeah, I think the best thing is to go get your messaging right. If you want kind of an overview or tutorial of that, the kind of the framework that I talked about today, you can get that at the link that I'm going to put here in the chat. It's designextensions.com/storybrand. I'm just going to double check that that link is right before I post it in there. It is. And you can request some information there, and we'll be happy to send you kind of an overview. There's the 5 messaging mistakes that people typically make that cost them customers on there. That's all free content. So if you want to grab that, you can go to designextensions.com/storybrand. Awesome.
Well, members, we care deeply about you. We are coming out of COVID. Hopefully we see numbers that are looking good. We're going to have our live meeting in May of this year, and we're looking forward to doing more for you. So if there's anything we can do for you, you let us know. You can email me at tom@heattreat.net, or just email us at info@heattreat.net. We will have another Heat Treat Live webcast in May, and we'll be getting the word out to you soon on the date and the topic. Stay tuned for that. But thank you again for tuning in today, because my friends, you're not just strong, you're MTI strong, and we're here to help serve you, because our goal is your #1 success. So have a great day, and we will see you soon.